a la gente.
Espérame un segundito que ya vamos en vivo en Facebook también.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are connected with 50 persons through the streaming. So I am now preparing the event, but we will start very soon. And I announce that it will be in two languages, in Spanish, the Spanish speakers, and in English, the Norwegian speakers. In English. Buenos días, buenas tardes o buenas noches, dependiendo de dónde estáis en cualquier punto del planeta. Vamos a empezar un panel internacional de expertos en la materia de los derechos de la naturaleza. Me llamo Eduardo Salazar, soy abogado ambiental y trabajo en Ecojusticia, una organización que se dedica a defender la aplicación del derecho ambiental y ahora, en este momento, los derechos de la naturaleza, porque pensamos desde la organización Ecojusticia que es una buena manera de cumplir con todas las normas ambientales desde un enfoque diferente. Pero yo no tengo que hablar, van a hablar las personas que han venido hoy y vamos a empezar directamente con la profesora Cristina Voigt de la Universidad de Oslo, que es además la presidenta del Comité de Cumplimiento de la Convención Marco de Cambio Climático, que es lo que nos hace estar aquí estos días. Un convenio o convención que empezó en el año 1992, que todavía no tiene un procedimiento para el Comité de Cumplimiento, porque lo están discutiendo ahora, y que nos tiene aquí reunidos para llegar a algún punto, para fluir hacia algún punto. Yo no digo nada más, 1992, 2022, son casi 30 años. Bueno, pues vamos a hablar del futuro y no miremos al pasado. Con todos ustedes, Cristina Voigt.
Muchas gracias, Eduardo. Buenos días a todos. I will speak in English. My Spanish is unfortunately not as fluent as I wish it would be, but I would like to thank you very much for inviting me here and also send my warmest regards on behalf of the IUCN World Commission on Environmental Law, which I chair. And the reason for being here is, of course, it's an exciting topic. It's a very important and relevant topic, but it's also that the World Commission on Environmental Law has recently established a task force on rights of nature, which is chaired by Professor Alexandra Harrington and by Professor Philip Cullett. And it is a task force where we work together with the IUCN Secretariat in order to elevate the discussion a little bit from the domestic discourse that we are seeing in many countries to the international level. Now, we all know that in order to transit or transform to a low greenhouse or negative greenhouse gas emission and climate resilient development, what is needed is a global transformation of pretty much all sectors, but also values, goals, and the tools that we have, including the legal tools. Now, environmental law has for a long time been, law in general, is the tool to bring about changes on the ground, to govern societies, and environmental law in particular has a role to play to enable that development within the planetary boundaries that are set for development. But for a couple of years, we've seen a very interesting development in the recognition of rights of nature in more than 30 countries. And rights of nature, as you perhaps all know, means the recognition of or granting of legal personhood to environmental elements. I just call them elements. I can't call them objects because they've been treated as subjects. And in this context, nature is treated, or these environmental elements are treated as right holders, as subjects of rights, not purely as objects, the way we've seen or looked upon them through legal systems for many, many years. Now, the discussion within the legal community, I think it's right to say, started with an article by Christopher Stone in 1972 called Should Trees Be Standing? But it is also a tradition that goes much longer back in time, recognized by indigenous communities. I myself worked quite extensively in New Zealand, where this Maori concept of kaitiaki kanga is a recognition of inherent rights of nature. Now, we've seen very exciting developments over the course of the last maybe 10 years in both legislation and also in litigation. I'm sure you're all familiar with them. We have legislation in particular in New Zealand, where we have acts that recognize the legal personhood of a river, of a mountain, of a national park. These are the Whanganui River, the Te Orewera National Park, and Mount Taranaki. I know all these places very well because I've traveled them extensively. And now they've been recognized through legislation, through particular acts, and have been provided with the legal personality in their own rights as an indivisible and living whole. We also, if we move around the globe to Uganda, Uganda has recently adopted its new National Environment Act, which is actually really interesting to study. It contains much more than nature rights. It contains pretty much everything that you would like of an environmental act to have. But it, amongst other things, also contains the provision that nature has the right to exist, persist, maintain, and regenerate its vital functions. Now, the front runners in this context have been a number of Latin American countries, in particular Ecuador and Bolivia, who in their constitutions already for about a decade have recognized that nature, in particular in Ecuador, nature, Pachamama, is where life is reproduced and exists, and has the right to persist, maintain itself, and regenerate its own vital processes. And you can perhaps see the link between the constitutional provision in Ecuador from 2014 and the Ugandan Environment Act from just 2 years ago. Is that my sign?
No. If you want to finish, you can
I'll finish. So now that was legislation, but we also see courts being involved in granting rights to nature, sometimes in the absence of particular acts that grant rights to nature. And we, of course, have the newest development here in Spain, which we'll hear much more about. Yes, it's very new, but I don't need to mention it because I know that you will go into much more detail, Teresa, in the Marmelo Lagoon recognition part. Right. But in particular, in Colombia, for example, we have several Supreme Court decisions that recognize rights of natural elements, a river Trato, but also pretty recently, the Supreme Court of Colombia rendered a judgment which recognized the Colombian Amazon forest as being a holder of rights, as being a vital ecosystem for the future of the planet, and recognize that the Colombian Amazon, not the entire Amazon, but the Colombian Amazon is an entity subject of rights and beneficiary of the protection, conservation, maintenance, and restoration. That, and that's important, that national and subnational authorities are obliged to provide. So here we have that immediate link between recognizing the right of the Colombian Amazon and corresponding duties of the government for the local and the national government. And that's very important because a right alone is good to have, but it may not be worth that much if there are no corresponding duties where we have authorities be obliged to protect this right. And I'll finish here just mentioning, as I said, that the World Commission on Environmental Law has that newly established task force trying to elevate all these different examples that we have from national legal systems to the international level and facilitate a discourse to see where we can go with that internationally. And I thank you very much, Teresa, and Eduardo. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The moderators is again with you. I'm gonna present my favorite professor in the University of Murcia and maybe in the world, because I like her so much. Bueno, al español, que es mucho más apasionado. Con vosotros y vosotras, Teresa Vicente, la autora de la ley que ha otorgado derechos al Mar Menor. Teresa.
Thank you everyone to be here. Also Eduardo and Christian and all my partners. I'm going to speak in Spanish because I am from Spain. Then when I can choose, I prefer my language. You can translate for me?
I will try
To try, right.
Then?
No. Okay,
okay, I'm talking about the history of history, because we get it right from Mar Menor in 1 year. And when we see the catastrophe, the ecological catastrophe in Mar Menor, when the fish jump to death in our beach, and then the people, la gente dio un salto hacia la conciencia ecológica y hacia la ética ecológica, y nos pidió a los científicos de nuestra región que fuéramos a las plazas públicas a explicarles el por qué había sucedido esa catástrofe.
So in the 2019, there was a catastrophe in Mar Menor, where there was a huge people algae and dying off a massive amount of fish. And the social movements took to the streets demanding answers of why is it happening, to explain why all the fish have died.
Mejor empieza desde el principio para contar la historia. Vale, rápido. Vale, empieza con el principio. Sí. El Mar Menor está en esta zona de España que limita con el Mediterráneo. Está en la región de Murcia, es nuestra joya ecológica y es la seña de identidad de todos nosotros. Durante décadas el Mar Menor ha sido agredido, ha sido considerado como un objeto para obtener de él el máximo beneficio ecológico y se ha explotado con un urbanismo desaforado, con la minería y con un modelo de desarrollo que nunca ha escuchado las necesidades de nuestro Mar Menor.
So Mar Menor is an ecological lake, saltwater region that we found. It has been an area that has been especially protected, given us a lot of identity. This area has been unabated growth of urbanization and mining, and has gradually encroached on the region.
La sociedad estaba tranquila hasta que vio la catástrofe, porque el Mar Menor tiene todas las figuras de protección. El derecho ambiental le ha otorgado figuras internacionales, figuras regionales de la Unión Europea, protección nacional y protección local.
People were pretty content for a while until the catastrophe hit, because this area was legally protected. It had all the legal protections, all the legal protections of being a special area of protection for the Mediterranean, for conservation, for regional park area, protected area for wildlife.
Pero en octubre de 2019, cuando yo estaba en la Universidad de Reading, estudiando los casos que ha citado la profesora Cristina de la Universidad de Oslo, estaba estudiando cómo otras comunidades que veían sus ecosistemas de gran valor ecológico colapsando, lo habían dotado de personalidad jurídica. Había estudiado el caso del río Atrato y del río Wanganí. Cuando iba a volver a mi universidad, mis estudiantes me mandaron esta foto y me dijeron: profesora, no vuelva. Tienen que estudiar en la clínica de la Universidad de Reading cómo dar derechos a la laguna del Mar Menor, que está muriendo a nuestros pies.
So in 2019, I was studying in the University of Oslo with Christina, studying the different figures of rights, and especially the Colombian River Retracto, the rights of the personhood of the River Retracto. And while I was there, this algae bloom happened. And I got a letter from my students saying, Professor, don't come back until you know how to protect our dying sea. Our sea is dying before our very eyes.
El pueblo escuchó el grito del Mar Menor y se sintió uno con la laguna. Se tiró a la calle día y noche pidiendo explicación a todos los científicos. Yo fui a una de las plazas y le expliqué la posibilidad de dotar de derechos al Mar Menor, y que habíamos empezado en la Universidad Pública de Murcia un estudio con los estudiantes. Ese mismo día, sin todavía redactar la ley, la gente empezó a coger miles de firmas y les decíamos: no sirven para nada todavía, pero ellos entendieron desde la conciencia ecológica y la ética ecológica una justicia ecológica que convertía el grito de muerte de nuestro Mar Menor en un grito de vida por los derechos de la laguna.
Beautiful. So that in this moment, the people were so moved, day and night, they occupied the plaza and started protesting in masses, demanding answers from the scientists, saying that we need answers, we need ecological justice. And there I started to speak to them. I went to one of the plazas and started to explain that Mar Menor could have rights as the right of nature. And the people didn't want to wait for some kind of legislative process. They started gathering signatures. All of these signatures didn't yet have any kind of validity. These signatures were expressing a mass consciousness and mass awakening for justice for nature, going from basically a cry of death of the river. The river was crying, dying, not the river, sorry, the sea dying, to a cry for life.
Rápidamente hicimos el estudio y nos fuimos. Ganamos primero una iniciativa legislativa local, pero el Parlamento de nuestra región dijo que no. Ese mismo día nos fuimos a Madrid, al Congreso. Allí está con nosotros la ministra de Medio Ambiente de España, Teresa Rivera, que ha llegado hoy a la COP. Ella, ese es el Congreso de los Diputados, se envolvió con la bandera del Mar Menor, y lo que yo llevo en el brazo es la ley que ese día la logramos registrar, y empezó el proceso dentro de nuestra Constitución, desde el pueblo, proponer una ley que le diera derechos al Mar Menor.
So we were first started with the local legislation, we went to our local city, we tried to get a law passed, and we were denied. So then our movement moved to the National Congress, and there, under the banner of support from the Minister of Environment, Teresa Rivera, who's actually here, we began proposing the citizens law. Citizens law proposing beginning to register the bill that day, beginning the process of constitutional process for legal rights of the Marmeno.
A partir de ese momento, todo el mundo en nuestra región y en España votó. Él es el presidente del gobierno español, Pedro Sánchez. Fuimos hasta el presidente para que votara, para que firmara, perdón, la ley. Logramos recoger no solo las 500.000 firmas que nos obliga la ley, sino casi 640.000 firmas, y no necesitamos los 3 meses que nos otorgó el Congreso porque estábamos en periodo de COVID y no podíamos salir a la calle.
So we went all the way to the president of Spain to sign the law, to sign this popular law. And we actually we got 500,000, we needed 500,000 signatures, we got 680,000 signatures, and basically it was in record time, in a time of COVID, where we couldn't even go outside.
Pasó todo el proceso legal muy rápido y ganamos en el Congreso y en el Senado por la mayor mayoría que ha conocido la democracia española. Todos los partidos políticos, derecha, izquierda y centro, dijeron sí, menos uno, Vox, de extrema derecha.
And it was an unprecedented consensus, the adoption of this law on April 5th. We had the most amount of votes of any other law in history, and this was from all parties, left, right, except for one, the extreme right, who voted against.
Ha sido una victoria de la ciudadanía, una victoria de la democracia social y ecológica.
It was a victory for citizenry, it was a victory for social and ecological democracy.
En Naciones Unidas reconocieron nuestra victoria, tanto la local, que luego no pudo continuar por el Parlamento Regional, como la victoria final en el Congreso de los Diputados.
So United Nations recognized our victory, as did the local towns, which previously couldn't have. We went all the way to the House of Congress and created, basically created this law that also passed in the House.
This is the law. Thank you very much.
It's a seahorse behind me. Thank you, Teresa. You are my sister-in-law. We continue. We let. I was a bad moderator because I let Cristina and Teresa be more. But I ask you. It's 12:30. We have only half an hour more. So I ask you three to be precise, not fast, but precise, and we can go ahead. The next presentation comes from Atossa Soltani, which was working as judge in the Permanent or Moral Tribunal for Rights of Nature. Thank you very much, Atossa. Can you come here?
Thank you, Eduardo, and it's great to be here at COP27 on this panel on the rights of nature. I'm here on behalf of several networks. One is the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature, which is an organization that is a network of people around the world that are working on rights of nature frameworks. I'm also the global coordinator for the Amazon Sacred Headwaters Initiative. It's an initiative that's working with 30 indigenous nations and to permanently protect the headwaters of the Amazon region in Ecuador and Peru. And I'm also part of Amazon Watch's board of directors, founder and president of the board of Amazon Watch. So it's an honor to be here. I just want to say that one of the most important and transformational activities that I've had the honor of being involved with for the last 10 years is being as one of the judges on the Citizens Tribunals for the Rights of Nature. Now, of course, you've been hearing why Rights of Nature framework is important. It treats nature the way indigenous peoples have always seen nature, which is as a living entity, and therefore meriting being a subject of rights, not an object of rights. We know that all of the problems that we're facing currently is not only because of the life-blind economic system that's devouring nature, which is the fundamental basis of all life. It is also how we in the modern world have seen nature. Have seen nature as basically natural resources here for our human benefit. This anthropocentric worldview has led us to the collapse of all of the systems of the biosphere. What Rights of Nature offers us is a paradigm shift in the way we relate to nature as a living entity, the way indigenous peoples have always seen nature, that she is alive, that she gives us life, and she's here to help perpetuate and create conditions conducive to more life. That's how nature operates, as opposed to how humans have been behaving in out of balance with nature, seeing nature, seeing this earth as, basically a place to be exploited for our benefit. Now, this transformation is a paradigm shift in not only our own consciousness, but in the frameworks that treat law, that address our legal frameworks, that address how nature is alive, is a subject, has a right to exist, that all people on earth, rights of nature also includes human rights, includes people as well. It sees how every one of us can be empowered to bring cases forward for the enforcement of rights of nature. And so under that framework, that it's a participatory citizens democracy for us to be advocating for the rights to life, of all life, not just human life. And the citizens tribunals have been holding these sessions. We've had over a dozen local and international sessions, but most importantly, we've had, I've at least participated in 3 international tribunals during COP in Paris and Lima. And basically we've been looking, bringing a court together, bringing plaintiffs, which are the cases that people propose and nominate a violation of rights of nature. We have been assembling a panel of distinguished activists and scholars and judges and legal experts who make up the Citizens Tribunal, make up the judges on the panel. We've had a special earth prosecutor team, prosecution. And we've been hearing cases everywhere from the Amazon basin to Africa, around mining, around oceans, and have been trying those cases and issuing for the restoration, remediation, and the regeneration of the rights that have been violated. So I invite you all to learn about this process of citizens taking on this process of citizens. Was that for me?
No.
Okay. To basically transform consciousness. We've also been the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature has also been organizing hubs. These hubs include hubs for professors, universities, hubs for youth, hubs for indigenous people, hubs for regions like Europe and South America. And we've been self-organizing in hubs that help support each other's campaigns for rights of nature. And in that way, the rights of nature is flourishing. It's having incredible results from cities that are adopting rights of nature ordinances to stop fracking in the US, to that what you heard about the rights of rivers in New Zealand, personhood for rivers in Colombia, and the Retrato River was able to stop a big mine. We've also been training judges. We're providing, my work is very much focused in Ecuador, and it was the first country to have rights of nature law, but enforcement has taken a while. We are finally seeing rights of nature cases lead to success in courts, because we've had to do a lot of education of professors, law students, law schools, and judges, so that they understand the rights of nature framework. And I just want to conclude by inviting you to go to the Rights of Nature, the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature, sign the declaration, download tools that are there, and see the observatory of cases that are currently active. And I also want to recognize that here we have some leaders from the Yurok Nation. The Yurok Nation, as with the Ponca Nation in the US, have been passing rights of nature laws in their own governance structures in their own territories, and are also working on rights of nature personhood. So we're also seeing indigenous peoples who have autonomous territories taking on this rights of nature framework. So thank you very much for your time.
So, thank you very much to Mrs. Soltani, to Atosa, inspiring work they are doing. I think the restoration is the word we need to learn in order to stop the damage in our ecosystem. So it's very good to talk about judges, because the judges can enforce this principle of who pollutes pay. Who pollutes pay, no? Because I am not polluting and I am paying. And the next person I will present in Spanish. This is my mother language also. La próxima persona que nos va a acompañar es Patricia Walinga. Ella es del pueblo originario quechua. Es todo un honor para mí presentar a una persona que viene del pueblo quechua de Sarayaku. Quichua, no quechua. No, quechua es de Carlón. Sí. Ah, quichua. Vale. Y nada, pues Patricia nos va a hablar en castellano y Atosa nos va a ayudar lo va a traducir tan gustosamente. Todo un placer tener a Pati.
Buenos días, muchas gracias por la invitación.
Good morning, and thank you so much for this invitation.
Para nosotros, los pueblos indígenas, la naturaleza siempre ha tenido derechos.
For us, the rights that nature has always had rights.
Y siempre lo hemos tratado de explicar, solo que muchas veces no hemos sido comprendidos.
And we've always tried to explain this and share this, but many times people have not understood.
Nos alegramos mucho que la ciencia, los escritores, los activistas, ahora todos empiecen a hablar sobre la importancia de los derechos de la naturaleza.
And we're very happy that now the scientists, the academics, the activists now are speaking about the rights of nature.
En Ecuador, la Constitución del 2008 reconoció los derechos de la naturaleza.
In 2008, Ecuadorian government recognized the rights of nature in our constitution.
Pero el que esté en la Constitución no significa que realmente los gobiernos estén dispuestos a implementarlos en los territorios.
And unfortunately, because the rights of nature is in our constitution, doesn't necessarily mean that it's implemented.
Porque siguen con políticas extractivas, petróleo, minería, madereras, apertura de carreteras.
Because they continue with extractive industry projects, mining, oil, logging, and road.
Sin embargo, es un instrumento muy importante porque muchos abogados han logrado incidir y tener casos exitosos en el tema de los derechos de la naturaleza.
But that said, there have been cases that have been successful, and lawyers have been implementing and putting into practice rights of nature in our country.
Creo que es el idioma que entiende la sociedad occidental, los derechos de esta manera.
I think it's because the general civil society uses this language.
Nosotros, al ver que todo estaba tan lento, que había una crisis climática, compartimos una visión profunda de nosotros, que es un conocimiento sagrado de los pueblos indígenas, y lo denominamos selva viviente o Causaxacha en Quichua.
And understanding that we're in a climate crisis and we don't have a lot of time, and some of these rules take a lot of time. We developed our own rules, our rules that respects the sacred, and it is called the Convene, the living force for things.
Y para poderlo explicar, lo resumimos en unas pocas palabras. La búsqueda de un reconocimiento de que la naturaleza, los bosques, las selvas son seres vivos, conscientes y por lo tanto sujetos de derechos.
And to summarize, in a very few words, our proposal is about the recognition of all the sacred and living beings, and to recognize them as that they have rights and they deserve to be protected permanently.
Pero esto va mucho más allá de estas simples palabras. En nuestra cosmovisión, todo es viviente y son nuestros hermanos. Por lo tanto, la destrucción de la naturaleza también es nuestra destrucción.
And in our consciousness, in our way of our beliefs, the beings, all the beings in nature are our relatives. This is the way that we think, and we believe that they all deserve to be tablets.
Muchos a veces escriben y dicen que los árboles se comunican, que los hongos se comunican, pero todavía no logran explicar algo fundamental, que hay seres vivientes, invisibles a nuestros ojos, que están ahí regenerando los ecosistemas, que se conectan en todo el mundo con otros biomas para mantener un equilibrio global. Ese punto aún la ciencia no lo ha descubierto, así como nosotros, pero esto es importante reconocer. Por eso es importante el conocimiento de los pueblos indígenas. Eso es lo que vengo a compartir aquí. Muchas gracias.
So science has recognized the rights of nature and have recognized that trees communicate, different living things communicate, but they haven't discovered yet. It's something that indigenous people will and has been for a long time. That we are starting to communicate. It's about that. And that are invisible, that we cannot see, but we know they're there. These living beings are regenerating. They're there to keep our forests alive. And they are interconnected. And this is something that we've known and we felt for a very long time. And now we're starting to bring that knowledge together with science. And this is what I wanted to share today.
Thank you very much, Patty. Thank you very much for the translator. And is it not wonderful to have these 4 women here? This is not wonderful. Yo creo que hoy es el día de la energía en la COP. Y yo pensando en lo que ha dicho Patty, yo diría que todos somos energía. Hace poco hubo 3 premios Nobel, 3 científicos que fueron premios Nobel, hablando de la energía de las partículas. Aquí estamos dependiendo de una gente que está aquí discutiendo, tienen un pabellón cada una y que son grandes de la energía, pero realmente la energía, yo no sé si Patty considera conmigo, la energía está aquí, donde estamos nosotros. El cielo, la tierra, nosotros. Ahora viene mi compañero abogado Eduardo Mosqueda, que es oriundo de México y de Jalisco, siempre me equivoco, pero hoy no. Y él es un joven abogado, aunque muy experimentado, tiene una historia muy dura, no sé si la va a contar, yo no la voy a contar porque me parece muy dura, pero es una persona que ha surgido, ha atravesado, defiende a los pueblos indígenas en México, sigue batallando por lo que él entiende que es la aplicación cabal del medio ambiente. So he's working with law enforcement in Mexico, with indigenous population, Indigenous people. And he will make his presentation both in English and Spanish because he speaks very well English, better than me. Right. So Eduardo, come here, tocayo.
Well, after all the presentations of my colleagues, it's very hard to express something else because it's too much knowledge in a few minutes. So I will try to express some of the cases that I've been working on and why this another cosmovision than our friend told us. It's very, and our friend told us, it's very important. It's very important. Mexico. Everyone, what do you think about Mexico? What do you think when you hear this word? Mariachi, nature, water, traditions, indigenous peoples also. But unfortunately, right now, we are living in a very corrupt state. The main basin in Mexico that begins in the center of Mexico, and it's called Lerma, and that goes to the main also lake in Mexico, Chapala, and then go to the Pacific, is the biggest sewage also in my country. The indigenous people who are living there in the Chapala Lake, I will tell you some hard data about it. They have 100% of the women that give in these indigenous communities that give breast milk to their children are given them Tusian and another heavy metals. At least 400 children of these indigenous people communities are having kidney disease. They are dying at the ages of 12, 14, 15 years old. Also, the fishes that they eat since centuries ago, right now are candies of heavy metals. You can imagine how all this pollution are destroying their lives. Even some of the scientists of the area and the public university in my country, in my state, Universidad de Guadalajara, are making a relation between the agrochemicals and how this affect the development of the brains of the young people in these communities. This is the consequences of a grown cosmovision and philosophy, and a way of thinking of how is the development has to be done. That's why it's important to retake, rethink, reflect, and recognize the traditions of our people, because we are, at least in Mexico and in all of the countries, we are the people of that era that recognize the lakes and the rivers as a persons, as a mother, and not as a sewage. That's the reason why in Mexico, for example, the Supreme Court of Justice is starting to give little steps on this way. For example, one progressive minister of this Supreme Court recognized in one of the sentences 2 years ago that the nature had inherent rights that give us the opportunity, in the cases that I right now litigate with colleagues, with brave women and men who believe also in this, the opportunity to get some results. For these indigenous communities, we submit a lawsuit. and the judge recognize, not in 1 month, not in a year, but immediately, the day after we submit the lawsuit, the right of these people and the duty of the government to give them all the medical health care immediately. Emergency food for all these communities. And also for stopping the pollution of the sources that right now are doing like a party, because they pollute the water, because that is like a saving for his pockets. So right now in Mexico, we don't have a law like this. We only have small steps like the sentence that I told you before, but with Eduardo, mi tocayo, and with another friends, because as you said, making hubs is the key to access to justice, is the key. I'm very sure that in a few years, maybe 1 year, maybe 2 years, we start the beginning of the process, and we will be more connected between us, and we will change the view of this world, how they see the development. Thank you so much.
We are finishing. Well, brave man. We have only 7 minutes, and I will to give the floor to the persons who are here in the COP, the persons who are in following us through the Zoom. I will privilege the people who is here. So I want us to ask you if you want to, if you have some question, and you need to come here to make the question and sit here. We share our kingdom.
But I wanted to invite maybe the leadership of the Yurok Nation in the climate area of Northern California to say a few words about their.
Can you come? Can you come here? You need to come here because you need to come here, Javier.
For the people on Zoom,
On Zoom. They will hear you. You need to use this headphone and the microphone. Please.
Again, thank you for the opportunity to share a portion of the Yurok story. We just first would like to honor and recognize Council Member Sherry Provo, who's a tribal leader as well as thought leader in the innovative approaches and the tribal leader participating in the COP27 delegation. We also have Melody Meyer, our Associate General Counsel within our Office of Tribal Attorney, and Don Baum, our General Counsel. The Yurok tribe again is attending here in this panel in solidarity with our sisters and again the professionals and academics. The Yurok tribe recognizes the traditional inherent rights of indigenous peoples to govern their natural systems of law, economic systems, and cultural diplomacy. And so it's not only exciting to see the two tribal leaders from the north welcome the sister from the global south to the Yurok ancestral territory. So the inherent diplomacy between the indigenous peoples many times are understood within these laws of nature, and the Yurok tribe has carried on that tradition. in ceremony and scientific contribution to humanity. And we appreciate the academics and the judges that are implementing these systems change and paradigm shift, as our sister Rosa mentioned. Thank you.
So, thank you, everybody. Thank you to all the people who have been here standing for the rights of Mother Earth, the rights of nature. I am working for making ecocide an international crime at the International Criminal Courts, because we consider that we really need a law to protect Mother Earth, and we really need to have this law at the same level, legally and ethically, as the worst crimes that can be committed. So we really want to have ecocide crime together with genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. And we think that it is a piece that is missing in this protection of nature, and that is very, very important that we recognize the rights of Mother Earth, the rights of ecosystems to live, but at the same time, we need the legal tool to protect these rights as their right to exist and to live in peace for all the ecosystems in the world, and also for the people who live in these ecosystems, are part of these ecosystems, are protecting these ecosystems. So that's why we asked for this. We asked for having ecocide as an international crime. Thank you.
Any question? Or I can ask on internet, but I think it's better for us if someone. I make it with my classes. You? I have seen your face. You wanted to say something. Muy bien. ¿Vas a preguntar? Pregunta en inglés directamente, porque todos hablan inglés.
Yes, I wanted to know in relation.
Present yourself.
My apologies. Yes, my name is Antoinette Nestor, and I'm with the Center for Climate Repair at Cambridge, and also with the Center for International Sustainable Development Law. And my question is, in relation to these cases, especially in Spain, what has been the view and the approach from other places other than Murcia? Thank you. ¿Cuál ha sido la opinión de los otros territorios, otro que sea de Murcia? ¿Cuál ha sido el resto de España? ¿La opinión o la participación? La participación en la
Si quieres.
Bueno, la participación de los demás territorios de mi país, de España, ha sido de apoyo total. Es cierto que de las 300.000 firmas, porque cuando volvimos del Congreso en la universidad había un montón de cajas, pero la mayoría eran de mi región, pero cierto que han venido de todas las regiones de España, también de las Islas Canarias y de las Islas Baleares.
Y de Helsinki.
Y también de los ciudadanos y ciudadanas españolas que habitaban en otro continente. Ahora, todos ellos quieren, o la mayoría de las regiones ya, una vez que ha salido la ley, quieren otorgar derechos a sus ríos, otorgar derechos a sus parques, a sus bosques, y hay un movimiento muy fuerte en mi país para seguir esta nueva estela, esta nueva revolución legal que ya tenía un camino y tiene un camino recorrido en Europa, pero que hemos dado fuerza, esperanza en el país, pues hay un gran movimiento para reconocer derechos a los ecosistemas, en principio aquellos que están en peligro.
Oh. We are must be very quick because we are in the hour, but I am pleased to have you with my headphone. Thank you.
Muy buenas. Marie-Claire Cordóñez Seger, soy profesora de Derecho Internacional en la Universidad de Cambridge y en Canadá y la secretaria ejecutiva del iniciativa sobre gobernanza y derecho del cambio climático. Es decir, I'm Marie-Claire Cordóñez Seger. I'm a professor in Cambridge in Canada and executive secretary of the Climate Law and Governance Initiative. And I just wanted to add one comment rather than question maybe, which is that in Cambridge before the COVID lockdown forced all the children into their homes where they couldn't see each other or their elders, there was a movement to make the River Cam a legal personality. And it is the children from the Eco Council who are demanding this. And I really appreciate the stories you've told, the advice you've given. I've been taking notes seriously because I will bring back local schools who have come together to make this possible.
So I will finalize with a wish. It was my birthday in Rome the last month, and I had a wish. My wish is I declare all of you prophets of rights of nature. You can go home. You can go home and tell us our story, please. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
This is more about our initiative.